Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. Tonight, I'm going to be going over probably one of the most important topics when looking into college and going into higher education, and that's financing your education. So I'm going to go over financing your Stockton education tonight. All right, so let's talk financial aid. Before I get started, I do just want to introduce myself. So my name is Maria Elena Dattoli. I'm Assistant Director of Financial Aid here at Stockton. I'm also a two-time Stockton alum. I graduated in 2018 with my bachelor's in communication studies, and then while working at Stockton in 2021 with my master's in instructional technology. And I do just want to say just a little bit of background. It's funny how I fell into financial aid. So I was looking for a job, doing with communications as an undergrad. And financial aid was looking for somebody to do their communications. So I kind of just fell into it that way. I absolutely love the work that I do now. I do a lot more than just communications, a lot of different financial aid pieces, compliance, all those things, which I really enjoy. So just a little bit of background about me. Okay, so before we get started, I just like to break down a few of the pieces of what we're going to be talking about, because I think it's really important to be able to understand the process broken down from beginning to end. I think it's easier to understand if we do that. So getting started, we're going to go over the types, the sources and the types of financial aid. Then we're going to go over how to apply for that aid, determining costs, and then understanding your aid offer and filling the gap. All right, so to get started, the sources of financial aid. So where does financial aid actually come from? So financial aid comes from the federal and the state governments, the university, as well as private entities. And they offer two different types of financial aid. Okay, those include gift aid as well as self-help aid. Okay, so gift aid, everybody's favorite kind, free money in the form of grants and scholarships. So free money that doesn't have to be paid back. And then the other part is self-help aid. So self-help aid, that includes loan options. So that's borrowed money that has to be paid back with interest. And then employment opportunities. So working and earning a paycheck. Those are some of the self-help aid options. Okay. So now I'm just going to go into some specifics of the types of aid that each source offers. So federal student aid, the federal government, they offer a wide array. They offer both different types of that gift aid and self-help aid. They offer the federal Pell Grant, federal work study, and federal direct subsidized and unsubsidized loans. As you get more into your education, there are some other aid opportunities from the federal government as well. The state government, they offer mostly gift aid in the form of the tuition aid grant, the Garden State Guarantee, the Educational Opportunity Fund grant, and NJ STARS 1 and 2. And I'll go into a little bit more detail in specific about some of these programs in a few moments. Aid from Stockton. So we offer grants, including the Stockton Promise, and then scholarships based on merit and extracurricular achievement. And then private aid would be private scholarships, private loans from any company or organization that's either offering a scholarship or that, will lend you funding. All right, so Stockton scholarships. At Stockton, we reward academic success. So we do offer first-year merit scholarships that are based on academic as well as extracurricular achievement. So we'll review your high school transcript and all of that. But it's also important to note, and something that I think is really special, is that we look at a student's extracurricular work as well. So work that they've done, employment, volunteerism or community engagement, any type of family responsibility that they have, school and community clubs and organizations that they've been involved in, sports, art, music, any meaningful experience to the student. We want to look at those because we understand that, you don't get the whole picture from just looking at a student's academics. We really want to see how well-rounded the student is and, all the different things that they're participating in that make that student who they are. So we look at all of those things to determine eligibility for these scholarships. To apply, students are going to complete the activity section within the common application. That's how we are able to, view those extracurriculars, as well as, we'll take a look at the high school transcript. Anybody that's a transfer student will complete the activity and employment sections within the Stockton application. And to learn more, you can always go to stockton.edu/scholarships. I do just want to give a shout out to our web team. Our website is really, really user friendly. Our search bar, you type in your keyword, and option 1 or 2 right there is going to be most of the time what you're looking for. So if you ever have questions or anything, of course you can contact the university, but going to our website is a really great resource, and it's really easy to navigate. So just something I wanted to point out. Okay, let's talk specifically about some aid programs. So the Stockton Promise. This is an aid program that covers 100% of the gap between federal, state, and institutional financial aid, so your grants and scholarships, and the cost of tuition and fees for qualifying students. So qualifying students are New Jersey residents with 0 to 59 earned credits, whose family adjusted gross income is between 0 and 65,000. So anybody that meets that criteria, what we'll do is we'll take the cost of tuition and fees, subtract your free money, so your grants and scholarships from the federal, state governments, and then the institution, so any scholarships or anything like that. And then if there's a gap between that cost and what your aid was, we'll cover that gap with the Stockton Promise. Okay, you apply each year by filing a FAFSA, or New Jersey Dreamers, you're going to file the New Jersey Alternative Application. And you can learn more at stockton.edu/promise. All right, the Garden State Guarantee. The Garden State Guarantee in its first tier is very similar to the Stockton Promise. This is a state-funded program, so the Stockton Promise is institutional. That's usually for your first 2 years. 0 to 59 credits is usually first year and then a sophomore student. The Garden State Guarantee could cover from 60 to 128 credits. So you're looking most of the time your junior and senior years. So the Garden State Guarantee is a last dollar program created to assist New Jersey residents, so you do have to be a New Jersey resident, in affording the cost of their education. Depending on their eligibility, the Garden State Guarantee can cover all or a portion of the gap between a student's federal, state, institutional, and here's another key thing, private grants and scholarships, and the cost of tuition and fees. So the state does require that we include private grants and scholarships in that calculation, and then the Garden State Guarantee would cover the gap from that. The Stockton Promise does not take out your private aid. Your private aid can go towards, if you're eligible for Promise, things like housing and meal plans and things like that. Garden State Guarantee, they cannot. So the Garden State Guarantee provides 3 benefits to students. There's 3 different tiers. The first one, you'll receive a $0 net price for tuition and fees. Second tier is $7,500 net price for tuition and fees. And then the third tier is a $10,000 net price for tuition and fees. Okay, there's additional eligibility criteria at stockton.edu/GSG. I do just want to go into a little bit more detail. Like I said, 60 to 128 credits, New Jersey resident. Tier 1, your adjusted gross income, your family adjusted gross income has to be between 0 and 65,000. For tier 2, $65,001 and 80,000, and then tier 3, $80,001 and 100,000. So for an example, tier 1, I kind of explained with Promise, it works in a similar way. So for tier 2, what we would do is take your cost of tuition and fees, subtract any federal, state, institutional, or private grants and scholarships, and then if there's a gap between the 7,500 and what your aid was, right, your costs, then we would cover that gap. So say, just for a nice even number, your tuition and fees for the year are for the semester, say, are 8,000. And then you have 3,000 in any grants and scholarships. So you're left with a $5,000 gap. So that 5,000 would be each semester, of course, right? So you're only supposed to pay 7,500 for the year. So they would cover that enough to where you would only be paying 7,500. And then the same would go for the 10,000. You would only be paying 10,000. So they are discounted rates significantly of what tuition and fees actually cost. So just another great program from the state. Again, you apply each year by filing the FAFSA, or New Jersey Dreamers are going to file the alternative application. Okay, EOF. I just want to talk a little bit about EOF because I really think that this is such a great program for students. So the New Jersey Educational Opportunity Fund, also known as EOF, we call it an extension of family here. ensures meaningful access to higher ed for New Jersey residents from backgrounds of economic and educational disadvantage. Okay, so EOF is not really a financial aid program. There's a financial aid component to the program, but EOF just provides a lot of great supports for students. Okay, so some of the benefits include, you have your tuition and fees covered, free college credits, interactive summer academy. So you would earn credits at this academy. You have different field trips and networking events, different opportunities like that. So there's a lot of different benefits to being an EOF and involved in EOF. I always say, especially with my experience here at Stockton, I've been a student here twice. I've worked here. I love it here. I love the work that I do and assisting students. So choosing to, stay here, of course, I think it says a lot about how, Stockton is a family and how much I really do love it. How much, we all love being here. A lot of the employees here, have gone to school here. EOF is a family in itself as well. It's a little bit of a smaller cohort, obviously. So you have your counselors that are there to kind of guide you, and your mentors that are there to guide you. So I think that it's just a very special program. There are some, of course, criteria that you have to meet to qualify for it. You'll apply by filing a FAFSA or the New Jersey alternative application for Dreamers. And then you do have to meet these eligibility criteria. So for example, here's this chart. So if anybody wanted to take a photo of that, but within this chart, so say for a family of 3, it gives you the household size. Your adjusted gross income cannot be greater than $49,720, and your assets cannot be greater than $9,944. So you do have to meet certain criteria. We will have to verify your income when applying. But if you do think that you qualify, I would absolutely indicate on your application that you are interested in EOF. Because it is such a great program. So if you go to stockton.edu/EOF, you can learn more as well. All right, so we talked about the different sources of aid, the types of aid. Now we're going to talk about applying, everybody's favorite part, right? Okay, so to apply for aid, U.S. citizens and eligible non-citizens will file the free application for federal student aid, also known as the FAFSA, each year to determine their eligibility for federal, state, and some institutional aid programs. So this is your application for pretty much everything besides private aid. The FAFSA has typically been available October 1st. However, I will let you know if you haven't heard already. It has been delayed. So of course, we're past October 1st now. It has been delayed. The 24-25 FAFSA will not be available until December of 2023. We have not received a date in December yet. So I'm not 100% sure on that, but at some point within December, by January 1st, it has to be out legally. So we can expect at some point in December to see that application come out. And I'll talk a little bit more about the reasoning for that delay in a few minutes. And then I just wanted to point out New Jersey Dreamer students. So Dreamers are not eligible for federal student aid, but they could be considered for state aid. So Dreamers will file the NJ alternative application at HESA.org each year to determine state aid as well as some institutional aid eligibility. The 24-25 alternative application will be released once the 24-25 FAFSA is released. And I do just want to note too, HESA is the Higher Education Student Assistance Authority of New Jersey. They're kind of the complement to federal student aid. So federal student aid is the federal government's aid distributor, and HESA is that to New Jersey. So they determine eligibility and then they offer aid. So I just wanted to let you know that as well, that they do that for U.S. citizens and eligible non-citizens, not just New Jersey Dreamers. Okay, so your first step with financial aid, and something that you can actually do now, is create an FSA ID, so your Federal Student Aid ID. So to do that, if you haven't already, you're going to go to studentaid.gov. If parents already have an FSA ID from an older child or themselves maybe filling out the FAFSA, you don't have to create a new one. You will use your old one. You'll just be the parent logging in. So you'll go to studentaid.gov though. If you don't have one, you'll create an account. You'll need name, date of birth, social, and an email address. Email address has to be unique to that FSA ID. We cannot have anybody sharing them because it kind of acts as like your username. You can't have the same username. So you will end up doing that. Something new, so the FAFSA is changing, which I'll talk about a little more in a moment. But coming in December, so previously parents without a social security number could not create an FSA ID. There were other workarounds we had to go through to have them be able to sign the FAFSA. At this point, federal student aid has now decided that they are going to allow parents without a social security number to create FSA IDs. So that process, we haven't received all of the information on that yet, but that is coming in December. So anybody without a social, any parent without a social cannot do this yet, but it's something that will come out once the FAFSA is available. All right, the next steps, of course, filing the FAFSA. All right, so normally you'd go to FAFSA.gov and you'd click login and you'd start your application. At this point, though, it's not available yet. So what are the reasons for that? So we're going to talk FAFSA simplification for just a moment. So the U.S. Department of Education right now is implementing a major overhaul of all of the processes, the systems, everything used to offer federal student aid, starting with the 24-25 aid year. So any current seniors, you're the ones that are going to be filling out the 24-25 FAFSA. When you look at the years on the FAFSA, you want to think fall, spring. So fall of 24, spring of 25. So if you're going to attend school within any point, in fall 24, spring of 25, that's the FAFSA you would do. Sometimes it can get a little confusing because, of course, there is a spring 24, but that would be the 23-24 FAFSA. So just something to note for future. But they are changing everything. There are so many changes coming to this FAFSA. So the goal of this, though, of course, there's a lot of changes. So there's anybody that hasn't done the FAFSA before is kind of at an advantage because they don't know what it used to be. So you're doing something new, whereas the rest of us are kind of have to reframe our thinking and we kind of knew what to expect. So now we're all going into it we're all going into it blindly, but with as much information as the federal government, of course, is providing. But there's nothing like actually sitting there and doing a FAFSA to learn. So the goal of all this, though, is to expand eligibility for federal student aid, create a more streamlined process, and really overall a better user experience for the FAFSA form. So the FAFSA had not been updated for many, many decades. So it was about time. Of course, a change is a little uncomfortable, but of course, it's that goal to expand that eligibility and really help out students who need aid and hopefully, that is what will happen. Okay, so what does this mean for us? Of course, the FAFSA is changing and it's going to impact everybody. All right, so I just wanted to go over a few of the changes. When you file a FAFSA, this idea is not changing. You put in all of your demographic and financial information, and all of that is plugged into a formula. And the federal government will calculate this, spit out a number. And that determines your aid eligibility. So it's a simple concept. The calculations are not simple, but it is a simple concept. So the number of questions on the FAFSA is not 40, but they are changing the number that they're using to determine eligibility to approximately 40. Previously, the number of questions they used to determine eligibility was 108. So it's going to be approximately 40. So that's simplifying that a little bit. Number of students in the household in college. This is a pretty big deal. So the federal government used to consider how many students in college were in the household previously to determine aid eligibility. They are not doing that anymore. The question is still on the FAFSA, but that will not be used in determining aid eligibility anymore. That number that I said they spit out after their calculation, it was previously called the EFC. Expected family contribution was not what you were expected to contribute. So I'm very excited that they changed the name to Student Aid Index. Like I mentioned, the formula is changing, but the concept around it is not changing. Your SAI, as it's going to be known, is more a behind the scenes number so that financial aid offices can calculate aid eligibility. It's not as much meaning to the student as it is to the financial aid office. Students and parents are also going to now have to consent to have their information transferred into the FAFSA from the IRS, from the federal government. Even if they didn't file a tax return, you're still going to have to consent to this. Without consent from parents and students, then there is no aid eligibility. So that's very important. The direct data exchange will replace the IRS data retrieval tool. So that's what's going to transfer your information directly into the FAFSA. You're actually not going to see the information it transfers, but it will transfer tax data from the year the FAFSA is requesting. Something else new, if you've ever filed a FAFSA before, students and parents are going to complete their sections separately now. So dependent students are going to add their parents as contributors. The student's going to do their section, and then parents will get emails, and each parent will have to do their section as well. Everybody has to sign and submit, and then once that happens, then the FAFSA is submitted and processed. If parents are married and unmarried or living together, then both of them are going to have to act as contributors and add their information to the FAFSA. Okay, so when you're ready to file, first of all, the 24-25 FAFSA is going to use 2022 income information. So that's just something to be aware of. Now, if you did file a tax return and your tax data is able to be transferred into the FAFSA, then you're not necessarily going to need a ton of different tax documents. However, they're always good to have on hand. So I would recommend gathering these now: your 2022 1040s, students and parents, 2022 W-2s, any 1099s, things that you are going to need to have: asset information, okay? Cash, savings, checking accounts, child support received is now being counted as an asset. You're also going to need to have the net worth of your investments, businesses, farms, anything like that. So that's stuff you can, easily gather now. This way you will be ready for when the FAFSA is available and you're ready to complete it. When that happens, you're going to visit FAFSA.gov, the student will. I always recommend, even though a lot of parents will either sit with their student and help them complete the FAFSA, I always recommend logging in as the student. There is an option to select that you are the parent. However, there are a lot of roadblocks later on. It's not easy to make corrections. There are things that make it very difficult to move forward at some point. If you select that you are filling it out as the parent. Plus, the student is going to have to consent to have their information transferred in anyway. So it's just better. And I really recommend that you are always logging in as the student. So you're going to go to FAFSA.gov, log in with the student's FSA ID and password, complete the onboarding process, which is there's a short video, and then it's just kind of understanding some of the new pieces to the FAFSA, who a contributor is, why consent is needed, and all of that. Then complete each section of the FAFSA, including student identity information, again, providing that consent, dependent, personal, and unusual circumstances, parent information. So this is where students are going to add parents as contributors. And then student demographic information, student financials. The school selection section is, of course, very important. And then review and sign. Okay. Then the parent is going to receive an email that the student has asked them to contribute to their FAFSA. So they're going to click on the link in their email. That will take them to FAFSA.gov. Then they'll log in with their FSA ID and password as the parent, complete that same onboarding, complete their identity information, including that consent, then complete their demographic information, financials, and review and sign. Okay, and then I also just wanted to mention any New Jersey resident who files a FAFSA, HESA will receive your FAFSA. And if you choose to go to a New Jersey school, they are going to determine what your stated eligibility could be. Okay, you will have to create an NJFAMS account in order to see your eligibility, or if they need anything else. The schools, of course, will get that, but if HESA needs additional documentation from you, that's all going to be within NJFAMS. At Stockton, we send you emails to let you know if they are requiring additional information, but it's just always good to create that account so that you can view all of that information within there. Okay, I know that was a lot. I always tell students and families the FAFSA is not as confusing as it seems, or when we go over this, I know that it's so much. With this new FAFSA, though, I have seen a prototype of it, and I can say that it does seem simpler and it breaks things down a lot easier. If your tax information is able to be transferred into the application, there's a lot of sections you can skip. It's not a lot of manual work. So in certain aspects, it definitely is a lot simpler. So, please don't be too stressed about it. If you do have any questions when you're filling it out, we are here for you. Once you've applied though, then there are some next steps for you, of course, in making your college decisions. You want to determine your costs. All right. So I want to talk about the cost of attendance. We call it the COA, cost of attendance, includes two pieces. Two pieces make it up: your direct costs as well as your indirect costs. So let me just say, I really wish that the cost of attendance is something that they were changing with FAFSA simplification, because I do not like the name. The cost of attendance to me sounds like that's how much it's going to cost for me to attend college. And in a way it is, but in a way it's not. So like I said, it's made up of two components. Okay, so you have your direct costs. These are direct expenses to the university. So your tuition and fees, your housing and meal plan, anything you're going to owe the university. So you can think of these as your bill. And then you have your indirect costs. So things like books, course materials, supplies, equipment, transportation, any other miscellaneous personal expenses. Okay, these are things that we were not going to bill you for. But you really do need to think about when you're choosing a school and you're thinking about college. It's going to cost you money to purchase books for classes. You might need certain supplies. If you're commuting, how are you going to get to campus? There's gas or public transportation costs. There are expenses that pop up. So that's the reasoning for that. If you're looking at our cost of attendance, it's going to be higher than our tuition and fees and our housing and meal plan rates. So if you really want to get an idea of what it may cost to attend, you're going to want to look at those direct costs. The indirect costs are just to help you kind of navigate that other piece. It also allows us to put a cap on how much you can borrow. So you cannot borrow or have more aid than the cost of attendance. Okay, so your next steps: you've applied for aid, you've determined your costs. Once you've applied for financial aid, you will receive a financial aid offer notification. I do want to be honest, because of the FAFSA simplification, the changes and all of that, I'm expecting that not only Stockton, but majority, if not all schools, are going to be delayed in getting their aid offers out to students. I don't have a specific time frame of when that's going to happen. Previously, that would happen around the end of January. So there definitely will be a delay because, the federal government is, of course, delayed in getting us the information because the FAFSA is not available yet. So there are certain unknowns still, and they've been good at communicating, some different things that are happening, but until we have the actual application and we know how it's exactly working, we can't update everything of ours yet. So we have certain aid programs that look at FAFSA components. Our software has to be updated and different things like that, our offer notifications, calculators, all of these different things. So you can expect a little bit of a delay. So if it's, you're into February and you haven't received your aid offer, I wouldn't panic. We will be communicating with students to kind of keep them updated, but definitely expect some of those delays. Okay, I'm going to give you guys a sneak peek though of what the offers are going to look like, because the look is not changing for us. So this is what you'll receive. You'll get an email that says that your aid offer is available with a link to view that aid offer. Okay. Here's a sneak peek. So this is what your aid offer is going to look like. Within your aid offer, we go over what it's going to cost to attend, as well as how much free money you could receive. Okay, so your direct costs include those things we would bill you for, an estimate of those, your tuition and fees, and then your housing and food. And then free money that you could receive, so any grants or scholarships. All right. At the top of this here, you take your total direct costs minus your free money. Your total direct net cost is how much you may end up owing the university after your tuition and your total free money has been subtracted from your tuition and fees, housing and meals, any direct costs. Okay, so that's the number you want to look at if you only want to know what you may owe the university. We also include your indirect expenses. So those are, of course, all estimates. And then we'll do some calculations to give you the total estimated cost of attendance, minus that free money, then your total net cost includes those indirect expenses. Okay, and then we want to go over how can you pay these expenses. So one of the ways when students file a FAFSA, they're offered federal direct loans, the subsidized and or the unsubsidized loans. You can just be offered an unsub loan because the subsidized loan is need-based. Okay, but we go over those loans as well. Okay. After that, you're going to go and accept your aid offer. Very easy to do in the Go Stockton portal. There's a link within your offer to do that. Any free money is accepted automatically, but anything else, any loans or any work study opportunities, you're going to have to accept and then complete other requirements for those. But all that information is within that aid offer. Your next step is closing the gap. So after all of your aid is applied, you most people will have a gap between, what they owe and what their aid offer is. So I like to just do this little illustration of the cost of attendance and the gap. So we have your direct costs and your indirect costs that make up your cost of attendance. There's your financial aid and there's your gap. Okay. So how are we going to fill that? Because obviously that's something that needs to be paid. One thing I do like to point out is that reducing your costs is a great way, obviously, to shrink that gap. Okay, so there are a few options. Stockton is a flat rate tuition school, so really maximizing your credits can help you save money in the long run. Okay, at Stockton, from 12 to 20 credits is the same price. So you can take 3 courses. We are on a 4-credit system for the most part. You can take 3 courses or you can take 5 for the same exact price. So of course, your first semester, you may only want to take 4. Most students take 4. But in future semesters, you may want to take 5. And then eventually you may be able to graduate early if you're earning enough credits. So that's just something to think about, because if you're graduating a semester, even a year earlier, you're saving a ton of money. Next, choosing a cheaper option. So I understand that, we all want to live in the newest housing option and have the meal plan that, gives us the most, the new books. But, the goal here is we want to see you graduate. We want to see you achieve your degrees with as little debt as possible. And unless you're, paying out of pocket, we want to see you save as much money as you can too. So really choosing a cheaper housing option, choosing a cheaper meal plan option, renting textbooks, anything that can save you money is going to reduce that gap and save you a ton. Okay, so going back to your offer notification, we do list ways to cover that gap. The first one is external scholarship opportunities. Okay, I love this topic because scholarships are literally everywhere. So definitely apply for as many as you can. I understand that some of them can be tedious and you might not want to do them. I was in high school a little longer ago than I'd like to admit. But I remember thinking like, oh, I'm in my senior year. I just want to have fun. I don't want to, I have all this other work I have to do. I don't want to have to sit there and apply for scholarships. But in the end, I mean, any money that you're receiving, any free money that you're receiving, you're putting towards your bill or whatever the case is, your indirect expenses, anything like that, that's saving you a lot of money in the future. So it really is going to help you out and it's worth your time. Okay, so where can we find these scholarships? Local organizations are great. So example, your local Rotary Club. The student on the left here received a scholarship in the form of a laptop from his local Rotary Club. So that took away from that indirect expense. And then the student on the right here, I'll get over to in one second. So yours or your parents' employers is also a great resource as well. A lot of employers will offer either scholarships or something like tuition reimbursement, where you'll pay out of pocket and then you'll take your class, you'll get you have to get a certain grade for it, and then they'll end up reimbursing you. So that could potentially be an option. Always good to check with your HR or your parents' HR. But the student on the right here received a $25,000 scholarship from Chick-fil-A because she worked there. She obviously had to go through an application process and all of that, but there are many, many scholarships out there. Your high school guidance counselors are great resources. A lot of those local organizations are going to go to them and say, we have these scholarships, please promote them to your students. Search sites are out there. You can type in, you're interested in whatever sport or you're a certain heritage or things like that. There's even like a left-handed person scholarship. So they are out there. Of course, you want to, beware. If somebody's asking for your social or your banking information for you to pay to apply, those are red flags. You don't want to do those. They're most likely scams. They shouldn't be taking any money from you. But great resources out there, great resources available. You can go to stockton.edu/scholarships for information on our merit-based scholarships, but we also have a scholarship resource center on the financial aid side where we list search sites and a bunch of different other opportunities as well. Okay, next we're going to talk about loans, everybody's favorite. Borrowing and financial literacy, that was my capstone project. That was the theme of my capstone project for my master's degree. So I am super passionate about this topic. I love talking about loans. The fact is that majority of students must borrow or take out loans to help cover the costs of their education. The main thing is not to be afraid of borrowing, but to do it responsibly and to understand what it is, understanding interest rates and repayment, not over borrowing, only borrowing what we need. Okay, so federal direct loans are, of course, I mentioned earlier, an option. Most of the time, people need to take more than what the federal direct loans are offered. You get a limit every year. So for your first year, it's usually $5,500. It is dependent on credits, but usually $5,500 for your first year. Okay, I've had parents and students say to me, well, I owe $10,000. So why am I going to take $5,000 in this loan and $5,000 in a different loan? I'll just take it all in one. So they'll get a private loan with a 9% interest rate. Or 10% interest rate. Private loans, I've seen upwards of 12 to 14%. So, of course, you want to go with the lowest rate you can find. But with those federal direct loans, the rate this year was 5.5%. So if you're taking a loan, even though it's not for the full amount, right, the interest is what you're being charged to borrow that loan. So you're taking $5,000 or $5,500 at a rate of 5.5%. And then you're going to take your extra $4,500 or whatever you need in your private loan with that higher rate. Okay, you're going to save money because you're not being charged as much for the whole pie. So I think that's something super important that a lot of families, or students at least, and some families don't understand. So I did the calculations and I said, if you borrow the whole thing in one private loan with this interest rate, this is how much it's going to cost you over time. But if you break them out and you borrow this at this rate and this at this rate, you're going to save. And I mean, it was thousands that they were going to save. And a light bulb went off and the student's mother said, oh my goodness, I never realized this. So it's just something super important that I like to point out is really pay attention to that stuff. There's a lot of calculators online that can help you determine how much a loan is going to cost you. You can contact our office. I mean, we're here to help you. We want to see you get out of school. We want to see you graduate with as little debt as possible, and making those smart decisions. Okay. The next thing, of course, our private or alternative education loans. Like I said, the federal loans are usually not enough. So you may need to resort to a private loan if you don't have the funding to cover your bill. And that is totally fine. Just like I mentioned, it's finding the lowest interest rate with the best terms and conditions for you. And when I say terms and conditions, what I mean is you might be offered a really low rate, but they want you to repay right away. And that's not feasible for everybody. So, it's important to make sure that the terms are right, but also you're getting a low rate. So as an institution that does not have a preferred lender arrangement, we cannot recommend any one lender to you. However, we do have a list on our website. It's a historic list of lenders that Stockton students have used within the last 3 years. Okay, so you can view that list, you can view the different interest rates, you can compare them, see who you might want to go with. You don't have to go with anybody on that list. It's just kind of a jumping off point for you. But we do provide that. If you go to stockton.edu and you search education loans, you'll click private loans, and then you'll be able to navigate to that list. There's also something called the Parent Direct Plus loan. If parents are interested in borrowing on behalf of their students, the federal government does offer this loan. It is credit-based. The interest is sometimes lower than private loans, not always the case. So it really depends on your family situation, what you would want to do. But that is an option for parents to borrow on behalf of their students. And there's also information on there. If you search education loans at stockton.edu, you will be able to view information on the Parent Plus loan on there as well. Okay, payment plans and saving and making payments. All right, so of course, start saving now. Save as much as you can because any contribution that you can make towards your education now is going to save you money later. Okay, working a part-time job can help you cover some expenses. If you're offered federal work study, that's great. You work and earn a paycheck. If you're not, some offices on campus do hire students out of their budget. So you could still get a job on campus if you're not work study. If you wanted to get a job off campus, of course you could. But working and any payments that you can make are really going to help you in the long run. Stockton bills per semester and offers payment plans of up to 5 payments. So to definitely take advantage of these to make payments towards your bills. And you can use a combination of any of the methods that I gave. So borrowing, making payments, doing a payment plan. You can use a combination scholarships, combination of any of that. So say you owe $5,000 for the semester and you can only afford to maybe pay $1,000 over the course of the 5 months. So that's totally fine. Sign up for your payment plan and you get a loan for the other $4,000. That's $1,000 less that you are borrowing, and you're also saving the interest that's accruing on that. So just definitely things to think about when looking to cover your bill. Okay. Lastly, I just wanted to tout our social media. We put a lot of good information on our social media, tips, tricks, reminders, especially with the new FAFSA coming out. Just getting a lot of information out to our students. We just want to keep you informed, and we want to make sure that you have all of the tools to succeed. So if you'd like, you can give us a follow at Stockton FinAid on Facebook, Instagram, and used to be called Twitter, now X. You can give us a follow on those. We do tweet scholarship opportunities. So those are ones that we've already vetted. So if you'd like to follow us on there, you can view those scholarship opportunities. And when I say we've already vetted, we've made sure that they're legitimate. Okay, if you have any questions, you can go to Stockton's Go Stockton portal. So once you're accepted, you'll get your portal credentials. And then this is also on our website too. But if you go to your portal, you go to the financial aid tab, you can click on this Ask Us a Question, and it'll bring you to either email us or schedule a phone appointment. If you have a specific topic of your phone appointment, maybe you want to talk about loans, maybe you want to talk about military benefits or anything like that, you can always select that, or just a general appointment as well. For those who have not been accepted yet, or haven't applied or anything like that, if you go to stockton.edu/contact-FinAid, or just financial aid's main website, you can get to this as well. Okay, here are just some helpful resources as well from Federal Student Aid, HESA, the state, and then Stockton's financial aid as well. We are here for you. We want to help you. So if you have any questions at all, you can call us, email us, schedule a phone appointment, come into the office, anything like that. And if you haven't done so already, make sure that you apply. Go to stockton.edu/apply, and you'll learn more. And then I also just wanted to mention our Discover Stockton Day open house is Sunday, November 12th. So if you would like, come out, visit us, really get to explore the campus and see all that we have to offer, walk around the lake. I promise you'll love Stockton when you see it. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I hope you all have a wonderful night.